recent unrest in South Africa has drawn attention to the country's intelligence structures. Police Minister Bheki Cele and the State Security Minister Ayanda Dlodlo publicly clashing over the intelligence report. Now, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor at Fort Hare University, Dr. Oscar van Heerden, in his private capacity says the downward spiral started with a massive intelligence failure on the part of the National Intelligence Agency at the time that led to then-President Thabo Mbeki and his camp miscalculating their numbers in terms of the support that they had going into the erstwhile Polokwane conference of the ANC in 2007. Well, Dr. van Heerden talks to us now from Alice in the Eastern Cape. Doc, thank you very much for your time. So, intelligence failures of yesteryear. I'm going to go into that in a bit, but let's start with the massive intelligence failure that occurred recently. What have we seen from the president of the country in terms of consequence management? And if you're going to say we have seen none, why is that?
No, indeed, Collie, thank you for the opportunity. We have seen none, and we are all very worried and concerned as to why there is no consequence management. There are lots of speculation out there around the president being overtly concerned with the second term, not wanting to upset the apple cart, not sure about supporting the NEC of the ANC, and so on. But the truth of the matter is, all of that is inconsequential, because what we require at this point in time is a president, a leader that is supposed to take the center stage and lead by example. And that is that if you have ministers that actually disappoint and fail the nation in terms of their duties, then they need to be dealt with.
Prof, I don't mean to be a soothsayer, but today we have had two ministers that had public engagements. It was the Basic Education Engineer who was supposed to be monitoring the opening of schools in Gauteng, in Ekurhuleni to be exact. Then you also had the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa, who also was expected to have some public engagement via the virtual platform. These two ministers have since cancelled, and it is said in part, one of the statements, that it is an occasion that is beyond the ministry's control. Does that give us an inkling whether there might be something afoot? There has been this much talked about a cabinet reshuffle on the horizon. All right, Dr. van Heerden, frozen at the moment. Hopefully we can get him back. And in the meantime, maybe let's bring you this particular story. Doc, are you back?
Yes. Did you lose me?
Yes, I lost you for a second there. Did you get my question?
Apologies. Just repeat, Collie. Sorry.
All right. So what I was saying is that I don't mean to be clairvoyant, but there has been a very strange occurrence happening today. Two ministers who were meant to have public engagements, the Minister of Education and the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa, cancelling their engagements, and the explanation is that this is something that is urgent on the one, in as far as the education is concerned, and the Arts and Culture Minister, the ministry, saying that this is something beyond the department, that is something beyond their control. What could be afoot here? We have been told on a number of occasions, even by Sunday papers, speculating that there is a cabinet reshuffle on the horizon. Might that be leading us somewhere there, in your view?
Well, you know, the truth is, Collie, that there has been rumors abound. They are all indications that the president has applied his mind on this matter, and pressure has been brought to bear, not only because of the failings of certain ministers 2 weeks ago, but also generally just doing an honest assessment as to the competence of a number of ministers. As you know, there's taxi violence in the Western Cape. How did Cele deal with that in terms of Transnet and the railways? And there's so many other examples where people are saying that people really need to be reshuffled because they are not actually fulfilling their functions. So I wouldn't be surprised if the president is about to make an announcement fairly soon.
Yeah, I hope so, Prof. I really hope so. Let's talk about then.
Although I do want to caution. I always make the point we shouldn't be so geared towards a reshuffle as if it's the panacea of our challenges and problems, because we might not like the people that the president bring in.
Well, let's see what the president presents, if indeed his intention is to mount that much-awaited cabinet reshuffle. Let's go into some detail then, Dr. van Heerden. You've mentioned the failings of the past when it comes to the intelligence services in the country. We are aware of what the high-level panel report produced by the former Minister of State Security, Sidney Mafumadi, and what that revealed. In your view, has anything been implemented? Because as far as I can remember, the current Minister of State Security has been saying that work is ongoing to implement the recommendations of that high-level panel review.
Yes, it is my understanding, colleague, that Minister Dlodlo has in fact been very actively trying to implement the recommendations from the Commission or from the report. All indications from the State Security Agency is that it is slow but steady work that is being implemented. We understand that there has been a number of challenges, of course, and problems, which is always the case with state security. But this is the point, colleague, that the fact is that the State Security Agency, or our intelligence community rather, has always been the Achilles heel of our presidents. Whether we look at it from the time of Thabo Mbeki, as I indicated, all the way through to Jacob Zuma, who then decided to make it a private entity and really bring in a number of incompetent people to try and manage the process. And then, of course, now this recent failings just 2 weeks ago. So it seems to me, if you don't get the security establishment right, the intelligence, then you are faced with very, very serious problems politically.
And you warn, Dr. van Heerden, that, and I'm now extrapolating from your piece, you say this ultimately will lead to our collective political demise if left unchecked. How imminent is that demise if the president is going to drag his feet as he has done?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that the point I'm making is that if we don't take decisive action, if we don't take unpopular decisions, which is how many failures and how much money and damage must first happen before we actually transform the intelligence community. You would recall, besides the $50 billion damage that we've seen with regards to the 50 billion rand damage that we've seen. We've now also been informed, because of the computer hack at our ports through the Transnet, we are also faced with another 250 billion rand damage. So I'm saying that, if we are not going to sort out the intelligence community, it's actually beginning to hurt the economy, as we've seen. It's beginning to impact on our triple challenges. And so, in a way, not acting and not doing consequence management with the intelligence community does pose a very serious danger to our future as South Africans.
Administratively speaking then, Dr. van Heerden, let's leave the political actors on the side for a moment. Let's talk administratively. You write about the quality of the men and women who ought to be employed in the intelligence community. You're saying that these are people who must be qualified and also highly skilled. What is your sense of the kind of quality we have there now, or does even the word quality qualify given the failures that we've seen of the recent past?
The truth of the matter is that the majority of those that are employed in our intelligence community are unskilled and unprofessional. They have not been given the proper training. The training of our spies has been lacking for a number of years, and I don't know whether it is deliberate. I don't know whether we don't want competence within that sector, but the truth of the matter is that we are not having the requisite skills and professionalism that is required to actually have a 21st century spy agency, an intelligence community. And that is from crime intelligence to NICOC to the State Security Agency. We simply need to shape up and get the right trained people and the right skill set to actually come into, and this relates to obviously having a clear strategy. If we know what is our national security priorities and our strategy going forward, we will then know what is the appropriate structure and what caliber of people we require to actually take us, because at the moment they are failing us.
Prof, I'd like to conclude this conversation with almost a forward-looking thought. Last week, I read a piece, and I'm hoping that I'm remembering the headline of that opinion piece. It was by one of the academics who was questioning, essentially, whether the country has its democracy threatened, or is the threat actually against the president. And I'm going back to your earlier point about the considerations of the president and why he's delayed this cabinet reshuffle for so long, given some observations that maybe the conditions within the governing party are not conducive right now, given that he may be looking at the second term. I was listening with keen interest at the weekend to SACP General Secretary Blade Nzimande, who was talking in support of the words used by the president to describe the events of the recent past, that this was an insurrection. And Blade Nzimande in full cry, saying that indeed this was an insurrection which failed. And this is someone who has placed his Director General on precautionary leave because the Director General says that Blade Nzimande allegedly wanted him to do wrong things in the department. What is Blade Nzimande trying to do here, in my view, trying to secure his place within the cabinet? Does that put the president in an even tighter spot in terms of reshuffling those people who are not only ineffective but are now doing wrong things? I mean, look at the special leave that is being enjoyed by the Minister of Health, who continues to draw a salary and yet is on special leave owing to issues of allegations of corruption.
Look, I think, colleagues, a lot of these things are intertwined and connected. When we say there's a threat on the president in his person as President of the Republic, obviously that is a threat to our democracy. As the democratically elected leader of the country and of the governing party. But I do want to say that, firstly, the argument that we do not necessarily require an intelligence services is deeply flawed. No country, not even South Africa, can survive without an intelligence community, without an intelligence service. I think that is very, very important, firstly. Secondly, we do know that in as much as we saw the looting and the destruction of property and so forth, because of the triple challenges that our people face of unemployment, poverty and inequality, there was definitely a hand behind it in terms of coordinated actions, closing the N3 supply lines, targeting specific facilities and so forth. So I think that the president is correct when he says that there was an attempt of an insurrection to cast doubts and aspersions on the current government and on our democracy. And I think that is a correct assessment. How we deal with it is not only by dealing with individuals within ministries, but actually to say we do need to address the structural problems within our society, and that is to say, how do we come up with mechanisms to try and make sure that we grow the economy so that people can get employed. But in the absence of that ideal, we do need to put money, cash in hand, give people some dignity to be able to put food on the table. And I think the President has come to the party in that respect.
Dr. Oscar van Heerden, he is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor at Fort Hare University, but giving us his thoughts in his personal capacity. Thanks indeed for your time.